Hi, professional writers. This is one of the last videos that I'll post. It's about white paper specific. Well, okay. So the first bit of it is going to be design principles, which you should use in your white paper. And the second part is going to be explicitly helping you with white paper formatting. So yeah, hopefully, I don't think it'll fit in one video. So we'll probably do two. The first video will be mostly review. Skim through it quickly if you have a good sense of the reading, or if not, watch carefully. And then the second bit will be very helpful. Knock on wood. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, so design principles and white paper formatting. All right, so there are 4 principles of design, and they make a funny acronym. So the first principle that we're going to talk about, well, one principle is alignment, contrast, proximity, and repetition. And if you go CRAP, they make a fun acronym. It's a good way to remember it. Okay? All right, so let's talk about proximity. Principle of proximity is basically like you should put things that go together. Here's an example of badly done proximity, right? It's also a visual pun, which is kind of fun. But this word should go with this letter, so they should be close together. So group related things together. If things go together, group them together. This can be very helpful when it comes to headings. Put the headings closer to the paragraph that they go with, and farther away from paragraphs that they don't have anything to do with. This is also a good reminder that white space is your friend. It gives the reader's eyes a break. It doesn't overwhelm the reader. It helps them kind of catch their breath, and it's also visually pleasing. They're much more likely to read something with a lot of white space, which is why we do bullets or numbers rather than things grouped all together. Also, when it comes to your white papers, don't feel like you have to do 12-point times New Roman font. You should do what looks good. So maybe you want to make your headings 14-point and your text 11. That's fine. In your white papers and in life, avoid using all caps, even for headings, okay? Your headings should be like normal title case, which is, you know, the first letter of each word is capitalized, but everything else is lowercase. They talk in the reading about how centered stuff is kind of boring, and also don't spread things out into the corners of a document or a screen, because the reader's eyes don't know where to go. And this gets a little bit cut off by the video, but avoid too many separate elements. I would say, you know, you don't want more than like 3 kinds of elements going on at once. So like maybe you have text and you have text boxes and then you have headings, okay? That's not too many elements. So here's an example of how to do proximity. Now this is a bad example of proximity. Your eyes don't know where to go. Okay, so you read this, and then where do your eyes go? All the information is mismatched and jumbled, and you're not going to read it, and especially problematic for professional writing, you're not going to remember it. So here's how we fix this thing. We keep the title, and then we make, so the title is one element, and then this is a separate element, okay? So it's the Rosetta Dance Studio, here's the address, and here's the hours, okay? Here's another element. These are all the different kinds of dance you could learn, and this is the final element, okay? With or without a partner, prizes, free tea, and scones, so it's like extra. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 elements. This has a billion, okay? Do this. All right, so oh, sorry, avoid that. Well, I can show you. So this is a bad example of a business card, because here we have it centered, and there's things in all 4 corners. So how could we fix it? Well, we want to maybe keep Toad Hall here. And I assume Riley Pickett goes with Toad Hall because they're both bold. So how about we keep Toad Hall here and we put this right under it. And then we put a couple of spaces, and I think all these should go together. And maybe a little bit of white space between these element and this element, and then we'll have 2 elements instead of 5. Makes it much easier to remember. Okay? All right, moving on to alignment. Now, alignment is something that a lot of people don't think to do, but it can really make the difference between making your documents look really professional and polished and designed, and making them look amateurish and less professional, more like homemade. Okay, so if you look and compare, here there's all kinds of different alignments. And it's all right, but this looks much cleaner. Okay, why do we care about alignment? Well, you want the reader to know that nothing on your page is put there arbitrarily, that you have a reason for putting everything that's on there, and that you have thought about how it looks and how it should go together. It makes the pages more attractive because they look neater. People like clean lines. It's just a fact. And then you should experiment with alignments other than center, because center is boring. And so you'll notice that this is all aligned towards the left, whereas this is kind of, sort of, there's multiple, but maybe the more dominant one is center. So this gets a bit cut off by the video. I would stick with 1 alignment per page. Now this is a rule that can be broken in certain situations, but only once you get really good at alignment. So you'll notice this is all the same. This is different and it looks sloppy. Okay? So here are some other tips. When you have different sections, so maybe this is your title header, and here's some paragraphs, and here's 2 pictures, and here's some more sentences, and this is your footer. You'll notice that they're all aligned, rather than this, which looks sloppier. Okay? Also, when you use images, make sure they're aligned with each other and aligned with your writing. Okay? You want to avoid what's called justified text, and this is text that fills the whole line and it messes with the spaces in between sentences, in between words, and maybe even between letters. This is used often in newspapers, but it doesn't look good in anything but newspapers. Okay? Make sure you align frames of graphics or images or pictures with your other elements, whether that's your title or your text. Okay? This is similar, align headings with text and keep them the same. If it's all left, keep it all left. If you want to experiment with the right, put it all at the right. Okay? You can strategically break rules, but make sure you're breaking them for a reason, and make sure it looks obvious, because otherwise people are going to think you just messed up. Okay? One more tip about alignment is about trapping your white space. So this is all left aligned. So you're following the rules, but here's one other thing to think about. There's all this white space that's trapped over here. And it kind of looks weird, given that there's this clean line here in your image. So how can we fix that? Well, we can make it all right aligned. So there's a nice center element here. It's kind of uniting this clean line of the picture and the clean line of the text. Now this is silly language, so you shouldn't feel bad if you can't read it. It's just word salad, word jumble. It's just the author did this intentionally so that you wouldn't get distracted by what it's saying, just what it looks like. Okay? All right. Here's another example. Okay. So this is a business card. It's all right, but it's breaking some rules. This is centered aligned. This is kind of right to center. This is even farther right to center. This is left-ish, and this is less left. Okay, there's a lot of alignments going on here. Check this out. Here is an example of strategically broken alignment. Okay. Center. So the image is centered, this bit is centered, and the title is centered. Here's the contact information aligned left, and here's the contact information aligned right. But you'll notice that they also are aligned with each other too. Okay? So remember, only do this strategically. Okay, moving on to repetition. All right, repetition is a good idea when you have a multi-page document, like a white paper, for instance. It's essential to multi-page documents. You can do it for one-page documents, but and I'll talk about what you should repeat in your white paper. So in your white paper, you should repeat the logo of your company. That should be on every page. We're going to talk about having a repetition in the footer as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about headers and footers and repetition there. Repetition is really important to bring a sense of cohesiveness to a multi-page document. Make sure it all goes together. It looks like it goes together. It's good too because it's like a marketing opportunity if you put your logo on every page. And it unifies everything as part of a good design. Also, repetition is great for organizing information, and it helps guide the reader through all your pages. Now ignore this is kind of a joke which gets cut off by my video, so that's not an example of repetition. Okay. Repetition is also helpful because it gives the reader a feeling that someone is in charge, that they know what they're doing, and that they've taken time to make sure that their whole document looks good together. It should be used thoughtfully, and make sure like you don't overdo it. You don't want to have too much repeating. You want just like the right middle amount, because it also helps to add visual interest, to attract the reader's eye. And you want to do that in your white paper. You want to attract the reader's eye, and you do this through putting things that go together. That helps them remember the information by including good alignment and clean lines. That makes it look neat, and people like neat things. They like things that add visual interest, okay? The final element is contrast. This also draws the reader's eye and creates interest. It's the attention-grabbing element of your white paper. Contrast also is really helpful for organizing information. When you do contrast, go big or go home. Now, contrast, you'll notice, can be contrast in color, white versus this orangey color. It can be contrast in fonts. Maybe this is a different font than the rest of it. It can be contrast in size. Okay, so compare this example to this example. You'll notice that I hope, this one looks better. It's partially because of these dark boxes behind things, and also these headings stand out way more than these, okay? And that's because of contrast. They're a different font, they're bolded, they're really purple instead of vaguely purple, okay? These are all ways to add contrast to your text. These are ways to add contrast through color, through font, through shapes. So it's like the dark background, that dark box behind the title. Size, and you can even like use lines to create contrast. So here's some examples. Here's a not so hot flyer, and here's a really nice flyer. Okay, you'll notice this stands out because there's a dark box behind it. You'll notice this stands out because they went big with their contrast. You know, they didn't wimp out. And you'll notice that this is bigger on this one than on this one, but for some reason, this one still looks better. Okay, so don't get trapped into like, okay, this is 12-point font, so this should be 14. Make this 16 and make this 11. Okay, it's just a matter of experimenting and seeing what looks good and comparing and contrasting. All right, and here's one more example.